Great Lakes Prepping here. Today I'm very pleased to be talking with somebody who I bet most of you are already familiar with, a YouTuber, pragmatist, and practitioner of all things prepping. You know him as Alaska Prepper. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me today.
Hey, thank you for having me, John. It's really fun to be here. I haven't done very many interviews, but everyone that I've done has been a lot of fun. So I'm sure that we'll have a lot of fun chatting away here for the next few minutes.
That's great. Well, hopefully, since we have kind of the same interests in a lot of ways, it'll be a pretty smooth one.
Sure, sure.
Uh, okay. Well, first, from watching your videos, at least my take on it is your big thing seems to be getting the average person to realize maybe that our entire modern system is sort of built almost on a house of cards. And
Yeah.
I like your videos because they have a mix of showing people how you prep, but also telling them why they might consider doing the same. Would you say that's kind of your objective to convince the maybe the unprepared people that maybe they need to open their eyes a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. So the perspective that I take whenever I do a video and whenever I interact, with the viewers that are watching my videos is this is what I do. And what I do is not necessarily what you should be doing to be better prepared because we're all different. What I like to say is take the good and leave the bad. So I don't unsubscribe from YouTube videos or channels that I don't like for one reason or another, because there's always a little bit of good to take away from someone's video. You may disagree with 90% of what they're saying, but imagine if you would have stayed through the whole video and not clicked off, you could have captured that 10% that could really help you out. That could have really been a game changer for you. When I first started watching prepping videos years and years ago, I was that person. I'd be like, "Oh man, this guy's crazy." Click off, right? And uh, and then I started realizing that you know what? I've heard a lot of good things about this person. Why is it that I'm only seeing the bad? Was because that's all I wanted to see is the bad.
Mm,
Why don't you look for the good in something? Take that good away so that you can use it in your life, and then leave the things that you don't agree with behind. So excuse me, there's mosquito season now. It's a bird, it's the mosquito. So,
oh,
so I encourage people to be open minded. And only because you disagree with someone, don't click off. Listen to their message because there might be a little nugget of truth in there for you, of truth that is your truth. There may be a little nugget in there that can really help them be better prepared. Um, so I always show what I do. And what I do is not always the right thing. And it's why I really love doing the videos. I've learned more from my community members telling me, hey, this is a better way to do this, or this is how I do it, than I believe I've taught. So
sure.
I learn a lot. Every time I put a video, I look at all the comments.
Yeah.
And and a lot of times the comments really provide me with a better perspective on how to be better prepared. Now, I do the same thing with the comments. If there's a comment in there that I don't agree with, that's okay because we're all different. And in a way, it's good to have criticism and disagreements as long as you can learn from them. One of my pet peeves is when someone always gets on there and all they do is criticize,
Mm,
criticize, criticize, right? Which there's nothing wrong with that. That's how we grow and that's how we learn, right? Is through criticism. You
yeah.
know, when you're at work and you do something and your boss checks it, he's criticizing, he or she is criticizing your work, right?
Mhm.
And then if boss finds something wrong, they're like, well, this is how you do it better. You're like, okay, great. Now I know how to do it better in the future. Same thing with when I go through the comments. Some people don't have the ability to provide a response in a way that is just not criticism. You
Yeah.
know, if they just criticize and they click off, what did you learn from that? You didn't learn anything. So I always encourage my viewers, listen, if you have a criticism, if you have a response on how you would better do this, by all means, leave it there because that's how we learn.
Yeah.
So I do the same thing with the comments. I take the good and I leave the bad, right? Because what I may consider bad for myself, for my situation, may be good for someone else's. So, that's, I don't know how I got off on this tangent about comments, but
No, no, no. That's
I
okay.
like I encourage people, in addition to preparing, have an open mind. Think about what may happen. Only because it's never happened before in your lifetime doesn't mean that it cannot happen. And more than likely, it will happen. And what I just mentioned there is what's called normalcy bias.
Mm.
I like to tell people who say, well, this will never happen. I'm like, so what you're saying is that because you've never broken an arm in your
Mm.
life, you can never break an arm.
Yeah.
Of course you can, right? Of course you can. Only because it's never happened to you or to anyone you know, it doesn't mean that it cannot happen in the future. So why not invest a little bit of your time and energy into being just a little better prepared? And I'm not the I told you so type of person, but look at what we're going through right now.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you've seen the videos where there's lines of cars miles long waiting to get a bag of food.
Oh, yeah.
And one thing that I noticed on some of those videos that I saw of those, mile long lines, there were some really nice cars there.
Yeah.
There was 50, 60, $1,000 cars. There's some really nice, expensive trucks there. Well, imagine if that person would have taken a little bit of the energy that they invested into buying a vehicle of that expense, just a little bit, and
Yeah.
to be a little more prepared for them and their families, they wouldn't be in that line. So the crises that we're going through right now, I think in a way, don't beat me up on this. In a way, it may be a good thing because hopefully it will help to wake up the masses that, hey, you know what? Maybe I should have a couple of months of an emergency fund
Yeah.
in just in case, right? Maybe I should have, 2 or 3 months worth of sustenance and stuff that I use on a regular basis in my pantry, just in case. And hopefully, it will wake people up to the fact that we do need to prepare and be prepared. Because
Yeah.
I'm sure you know this, but 120 years ago, the word prepper did not exist. People didn't go around saying, "Yeah, I'm a prepper." No, because it's what they were. They
Yeah.
they didn't they didn't have a word for being prepared because if you weren't prepared, you ran the risk of not eating that winter and starving,
Yeah. They just
right?
call that living.
Right, exactly. That was just living. And unfortunately, in the last 100 or so years, which technology is not a bad thing,
Yeah.
but technology has made us complacent to the fact that we still need to be prepared for anything. So that's what I like to concentrate on in my videos.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like you said, I'll break in there and I'll read an article from here or from there that is preparedness oriented, pretty
Yeah.
much telling people, look, you can do this to become better prepared. These are some of the things that you can do. Read this article. Hopefully, it'll help you. Some people are better readers than listeners, and
Yeah.
some people are better listeners than readers. So I try to mix it in just a little bit so that I can capture a larger audience, so that hopefully they can, one of my favorite sayings. Hopefully, they can reach one and teach one, and then repeat the cycle over again.
Mm.
And I'm an optimist by nature, so that's why I always say that the world can always be a better place. If we reach one, teach one, and repeat, and you're a good person, and it's coming from the heart, you can make a difference and help someone else, and they can do the same, in contrast to what you did with them. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've probably seen this as well as I have since about late February. There's been, at least on my channels and social media and all that, there's been just an absolute surge of interest from some people that were already kind of interested or thinking about it, but a lot of people that I think overnight are trying to, all of a sudden become an overnight gardener, prepper, homesteader, any of that. And, I guess my next question is, what do you think about that? What do you think of the surge in interest in those things, general self-sufficiency, just in the last couple months?
I think it's a great thing. I think it's a great thing, and this is why. The more people that are prepared, the better it is for me. The better it is for you and your neighbor. Why is that? Because those people that are not prepared to whatever extent they may deem necessary for their situation, right? When they come into crisis, who are they going to go to? They're going to go to you. They're going to go to their neighbors, their families. And unfortunately, their neighbors and their families probably are not prepared as well. So then you catch them at food banks, and I'm sure you've read the articles and seen the videos that food banks are being really overtaxed right now, more
Mm.
than in any time in their history, right?
Oh,
So I think it's great that people are getting into that preparedness mentality and that they're actually taking action. I mean, I know if you go to Amazon and try to find some garden seeds, it's probably not that easy to find anymore,
you're exactly right.
know?
I had,
So people are buying them, and
yeah,
that's good. And that's good. And you know what? Even this crisis pushed me to start gardening. I've never gardened before. All right.
okay,
Uh, my mentality on preparedness and self-reliance are two different things.
mm,
Okay. My mentality about preparedness is the gateway to becoming self-reliant. So
okay,
what does that mean? It means that you have enough, and I like to call it stuff because it's not just food, right? If you
yeah,
have enough stuff stored away to get you through a certain crisis, that time can give you the time that you need to get a garden going,
right,
to raise some chickens, to get some egg laying chickens, to raise some rabbits. So if you say to yourself, if you do a plan and say, well, how long would it take me to get chickens so that I can harvest their meat? Well, I don't know, about anywhere between 8 to 11 weeks or so, something like that. Well, then I need to have enough food put away to get me through that time period so that then I can have my own meat. Same
yeah,
thing with a garden. Most vegetables, you know, have a period of about 60 to 120 days before
yeah,
you can actually harvest them and eat them. So once you sit down, plan out what you need and for how long you need it, you're prepared. Now concentrate on being more self-reliant, which is the step that I'm on now. So I've never gardened before. I've never really grown anything before. So what did I do? I did the easy thing. I went and got an arrow garden. You know those little hydroponic gardens you can buy on Amazon?
I've
You put
seen
those
those.
little pots in them.
Yeah,
Okay. I went and got one of those and I bought a whole bunch of seed pods and everything. Guess what? I put water in it. I put plant food in it. I plugged it in. I put in the seed pods. And now I've got lettuce every single day. I can clip lettuce off of there for my family every day. So now that's showing me how easy it really is to be able to grow something. Now
yeah,
I'm going to take it to the next step. I ordered some grow bags. I ordered some dirt. I ordered some seed potatoes, and I
yeah,
even have a few starters. I have some carrots, I have some beets, and all that stuff starting. That way, when my materials get here, I can transplant them and start growing them. So
yeah,
that's the next step. Just I like to take it nice and slow. I always say that slow and steady wins the race. I'm not an experienced gardener. I'm not going to go out back and I'm not going to try to plant a full, blown garden. I'm going to start slow. I believe that we still have time to make mistakes, right?
yeah,
It's not the end of the world, you know. We have time to make mistakes. I mean, I feel that in the future, and not in the too distant future, but I'm talking in the next year or two, we're going to have some serious problems with food shortages due to crops. Like you said, you guys are really chilly for this time of year
yeah,
due to crops having bad harvests, and not only in this country but worldwide,
yeah,
and also the protein shortages that we have coming
hmm,
for various reasons. All right. I always like to talk about what I can control. Can
yeah,
I control what is happening now? No, I cannot. I can't control that, but can I control having food for my family to eat? I can control that. So why don't take advantage of that, which
yeah,
you can't control, and don't waste energy on the things that you cannot control. So, like I said, start slow and build your way up. And by all means, please stop listening to those people that call you crazy because they're not going to feed your family. I get so many messages, emails, and comments of people telling me I'm trying to prepare for my family, but they all make fun of me and they all think I'm crazy. And, I don't know if I want to continue to do this. And all I can do is encourage you to don't listen to the naysayers because they are not going to feed you.
yeah,
You have to take responsibility for your lives. You have to take responsibility for your family, and do those things that you know that will benefit your family. All right. Instead of listening to people that have no input on how you live. All they're doing is giving you their opinion on what they don't like or what they like about something. Don't listen to those things.
Yeah, we're talking about the idea of people getting criticism from their families or friends about
Yeah,
their,
yeah, yeah. Right,
and
right.
I've faced a little bit of that. When I first started kind of getting into it quite a bit. Um, I must have been talking about it with my brother, and next thing I knew, I was getting a phone call from my mom. She's saying, "I'm worried about you. We need to talk about this prepping business." I don't know
Really?
if she'd been watching too much Doomsday Preppers on TV or what, but she had some ideas
And
about
that's the thing with
things.
Doomsday Preppers too. I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, I've mentioned this on my other interviews, but for those of your viewers that maybe haven't heard this perspective before on the Doomsday Preppers. So, and I'm not sure if you'll agree with me or not, but let me go ahead and tell you. So, if you go back and you take a look at the Doomsday Prepping videos, I forgot when they came out, but it was years ago, probably more than a decade ago now that they came out with those, right?
Close
So,
to, yeah.
so that to me is one of the reasons why the word prepper got a bad name.
Hmm.
Why people look at the word prepping or prepper, that's a bad thing, because if you look at those videos from the Doomsday Preppers, uh, you will see that they pick people that say, okay, I'm preparing for, let's just say, financial collapse, right?
Yeah.
Because every Doomsday Prepper they had on there, they were preparing for a specific thing.
Yeah.
My way of thinking is, you don't prepare for one thing, you prepare for anything,
Yeah.
right? Prepare for anything and you should be okay. Sure, there's different facets of prepping. I don't know why people would prepare for nuclear war, because nuclear war, you're pretty much just,
I know.
you know, some people prepare for the end of the world. Why prepare for the end of the world? It's the end of the world. I'm going to be partying it up if it's the end of the world, right? I'll get a few shots in, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But you look at those videos, you'll see that, for example, John is prepared, the narrators, like, John is preparing for an economic collapse. And then they go and they show everything that John and his family have and all the things they have, right, that they've prepped with.
Yeah.
And at the end of those videos, and you can go back and look at any video, all right, of that series, towards the end, the narrator always comes back and say, even though John is preparing for a financial collapse, the likelihood of a financial collapse happening is very slim, so you don't have to worry about it. So it's pretty much telling the person, yep, you just saw what this guy's doing for this specific thing, but you don't have to worry about it, so don't
Yeah.
prepare.
Yeah.
And it's with every single one of them. And then they also use preppers on there that maybe, in my way of thinking, aren't really preppers. I remember seeing one there where there was a prepper that they were showcasing that said that he was going to be a marauder, that he wasn't prepping food, but that he was prepping arms in
Yeah.
order to take food away from other people. So when you watch those videos and every time you're done watching and you're like, well, I don't need to prepare for a financial collapse, it's never going to happen. Well, this guy's crazy. He calls himself a prepper, but he's going to, prepare arms and ammunition in order to go steal stuff from other people. I don't want to be a prepper. I don't want to be like that.
Right.
So, it puts somewhat of a subconscious message in the back of the people who watch those videos that they either don't need to be prepared because nothing's ever going to happen,
Yeah.
that will affect them, or that preppers are crazy because they just want to prep so that they can take away your stuff. So I think
Yeah.
that in my opinion, that series really did an injustice to the people who watched it and believed it, because instead of saying that, they could have said, although we don't feel that there's going to be an economic collapse, it's still a good idea to be prepared for a certain period of time just in case. They could have ended it like that and it would have been a lot better. But like I said, I think that series did a really big injustice, not to the word prepper. I could care less about the word, but to the people watching it and giving them an idea that, hey, you don't need to be prepared. This is never going to happen. Well, look at what's happening now. People are out of work,
Yeah.
businesses are shutting down, and it doesn't matter what it is. some people can come on there and say, yeah, well, the reason this is happening is because this conspiracy theory or this compare. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares why it's happening? What matters is that it is happening,
Hmm.
and if you are prepared to withstand, what's going on now, your family would be better off. So
Yeah,
yeah,
totally right. At the beginning of all this, people were rushing out to buy toilet paper for whatever reason, probably because somebody suggested, uh, hey, what if there's no more toilet paper? So everyone said, oh my God, what if there's not? Let's buy all of it. Then it was
yeah, it's
bread
just
and
that,
eggs and
that's
everything
just the herd
else.
mentality.
It's
It's
silly,
the herd mentality.
and
It's
I don't
like, for
have.
example, let's say you're walking down a street and you see someone on the sidewalk that's hurt.
Hmm.
If you just keep walking by, people will keep walking by.
Yeah,
But the moment that one person stops to help them, a lot of people will gather around
yeah,
to try to. That's just the herd mentality. People see and or hear that this
sure,
certain item is being bought and going out of stock. They're all going to go and buy it at the same time and do, what's called panic buying. And
yeah,
I like to tell people who in the past have said, why do you have a 3-year supply of toilet paper? I like to tell them, well, you know what? While that was happening, I wasn't in line trying to fight with grandma trying to get a
no,
pack of toilet because I already had it. So that's what being prepared is taking yourself out of the line of fire when there's other people on there that are desperate. Can you
yeah.
imagine going to the store and seeing two elderly people fighting over toilet paper
Oh yeah.
and leaving the rice and beans on the shelf?
Right, right. There was something I've thought a lot about is, this country's pretty resilient. We crave normalcy. We want to get back our normal way of life as fast as possible. And I think that anything short of complete annihilation with nuclear war or whatever, we're gonna get back to normal somehow, some way. But in the meantime, it's gonna be difficult, and everyone will do whatever they can to help. The government will do whatever they can, whether or not you think that it's enough. That's for you to decide. But something I think a lot about is what will that look like? The government deploys every possible resource it has. Well, that's going to look like long lines for Red Cross tents and FEMA water trucks and food lines. And I can't help but think of a photo I saw a few years ago, and I think it was taken, I don't remember where, but I believe they were Syrian refugees, and they were in a line for food. And this photo was taken kind of up near the front of the line, and it was facing the crowd of people in line. And the people in line, they were on a city street, and the crowd of people went from you know, side to side, up against buildings on either side of the street, as far as the eye could see, standing in line for food that day. And I said, that's what it looks like when the government wants to help, but there's too many people. And if and that was a big motivator for me. What can I do to never have to be one of those people standing in that line right there? And that kicked a lot of my sort of activities in this whole thing up a couple of notches.
Sure.
Uh,
Sure. And it's all about taking control over your own life.
yeah,
Because let me ask you this: if you're in line to get food from that FEMA truck or from that government warehouse or wherever it is, you're giving something up for that food. Now, what is it that they're going to want you to give up? I don't know, but you're going to be giving something up. You're going to be giving your control over
mm,
to a different entity, and then they're going to tell you this is what you need to do in order to get this. And if you have a kid at home or children at home that are crying because they're hungry,
yeah.
you're going to do it. You're going to do whatever it is. I
Yep.
mean, are you a father? Are you married and have kids?
I do not have kids. No.
Okay. Well, I mean, anyone that's listening to this that has children, what would you do to feed your starving children? What would you do? What would you know, I don't want to get into anything bad, but what would
Sure.
you do to make sure that your child who has not eaten in 3 or 4 days and
Yeah.
you don't know where that next meal is coming from, what would you do to make sure that your child eats? I'll tell you what right now. Human beings have an animal instinct, buried deep inside their psyche. And I believe, although I've never been in that position and I haven't seen a person in that position, I believe that if you have children and they were starving, you would do anything. You would do anything to
Yeah,
get food for that child, you
you're
know,
100% right.
and the things that you would do, I wouldn't even want to talk about it. I've read stories about, I'm not sure if you've ever read that story. It's called 1 Year in Hell, about the Bosnian conflict back in the 90s.
Oh yeah.
I actually read that story in one of my videos months and months ago. But the story followed a man and his family, and was telling of what he and his family went through for 1 year when everything was cut off to them. They
Yeah.
were blockaded. They had no electricity, no utilities whatsoever, no fire department, no police. It was literally a world without law, rule without law, right?
Yeah.
I probably misstated that, but it was pretty much what they like to call SHTF.
Yeah. Oh
It,
yeah.
SHTF. And he said that men who were your friends a week ago or 2 weeks ago were now like animals, and they would do anything to get anything to be able to put some calories into their families' bellies.
Yeah.
Why in the world would anyone want to put themselves in that position? And you know, a lot of people come and they say, I can't afford to prep. I just finished doing a video. I'm almost finished doing a video on the I've got one of those Goal Zero Yeti solar generators.
Oh yeah.
So I went ahead and got an extension battery for it. So I'm doing a video showing people how to connect the module to it and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, some people will get on there and say, I can't afford that, right? So that is their justification not to prepare,
Right.
because they have to prepare to the same level that they're seeing someone else prepare. But I've
Yeah.
told people before, and I did a video a while back, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, and I normally don't do videos like, but it was kind of a rant, because someone left a comment saying that it's because of preppers and their greedy ways that she and her daughter could only eat but once a day.
Uh,
And I, I mean, I was flabbergasted when I read that, because I've been sounding the horn, and not only me, but other prepper channels for years before I even started doing this.
yeah.
We've been sounding the horn for years. Hey, listen, it doesn't take a lot to be prepared. I came up with a number that if you take $1.25 a week, $5 a month, in 2 years, you can have 150 pounds of rice, you can have 50 pounds of beans, and then some oil, some salt, some pepper, some
Yeah.
spice. And that 150 pounds of rice and 50 pounds of beans, that'll feed a family of two for months,
Yeah.
for like months. And for $1.25 or $1.50, whatever it is, a week. So anyone can prepare. Anyone can.
Oh yeah.
You know, forego that pizza that you're gonna have once a month. Forego that number one at McDonald's. You know,
Yeah.
you have, if you don't have the socioeconomic status to be able to go out and buy $1,000 Yeti, you know, and a $400 expansion battery, think of those things that you can do that will enable you to prep that in the future. But don't
Yeah.
just not prep, you know,
Yeah.
just because someone else has something that you cannot afford. We're all in different parts of our lives, right? Me talking to someone about a piece of equipment that cost me $1,000, talking to someone that maybe is only on Social Security and that lives on Social Security and that's, you know, 68 years old, you know, to that person, that may be unattainable. However, guess what? They can get one of these, a Goal Zero flashlight that's like $79, that will still give you some light, that will power your phone. You
Yeah.
know, they can get something like that, right? But a lot of people are too narrow-minded, and shut it off as soon as they say, "See, I can't do this." They shut it off, and
Yeah.
you know, that's a problem. But I truly believe that if we keep sounding the horn, if we keep giving different examples of how you can do things, like if you can't afford a $20 pack of Mylar bags, use a 2-liter bottle with a
Right.
6 oxygen absorber. It does the same thing. You
Yeah.
know, I stored rice and beans like that for years. Nothing wrong with it. Never lost its seal. Still in perfect condition once I opened it and used it. Nothing wrong with it. I can afford to buy Mylar bags, so I
Yeah.
prefer to do that. But if you're watching me do this and you cannot, don't shut it off because it doesn't fit your lifestyle. Look for ways that you can still do something comparable that will give you the same effect,
Yeah.
cost less. So don't shut it off just because you can't do it.
Right.
All you're doing by doing that is quitting. I like to tell
Yeah.
people, don't concentrate on those things that you cannot do. Concentrate on those things that you can do to get you to your goal. If it means going out on a weekend and collecting bottles, I know there's some states where a bottle is like 10 cents.
In Michigan, it's 10 cents. Yeah.
So if it takes you and your kids going out on the weekends and collecting bottles and going for a walk and saving that money up, then do it. And, I even say everyone has a special skill that's unique to them.
Yeah.
So for example, I like to bake. If I was in a position where I needed money to be able to prep, I'd be baking bread or banana bread or whatever and bringing it to work and seeing if people want to buy it.
Yeah.
You know, that's just an example, but everyone can do something well. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if you saw this video of me, but one of my community members, and I was flabbergasted when I got this. I got some mail call. They sent me a handmade quilt, and it was beautiful. And
Well,
me being ignorant on quilts, when I opened it, I was like, "Oh, that's really nice." And my wife said, "Do you know what that is?" And I said, "What?" I was like, "It's a quilt." She said, "No, that's a 200-hour quilt. The
wow.
person that it took them 200 plus hours to make this. That person has a special gift that not a lot of people have. And you
Yeah.
know what that person does? That person on the side makes quilts for people, and she uses that money to be able to prepare so that she can be better off in case something happens. So don't
Yeah.
give up just because you're in a situation where money is not available or money is very tight. Find those things that you can do, because I guarantee you this, Joe, and I guarantee this to everyone. I can guarantee this to everyone that's watching this right now. If you think the government is going to take care of you, you're wrong. All right. The government can print money out of thin air and send you your little $1,200. That's easy. All right. But what most people don't know is that once that money makes it out circulation, it's going to depreciate the purchasing power that you have in the money that you've earned in the past, the money that you're currently earning, and the money that you're saving for the future. It's going to decrease. So that is just a shot of morphine, all
Yeah.
that is. So don't rely on government. And money, the government can print money, right? And I learned this from the Ice Age farmer. And it's one of his saying. The
Mm.
government can print money, but they can't print food,
Yeah.
right? So everyone right now is saying, oh, yeah, the government is sending money to this, is sending money there. All they are doing is transferring your purchasing power, your wealth, transferring it from you to someone else. That's
Yeah.
all they're doing. They're not making food. By all, for goodness sake, the government right now is telling farmers and ranchers to kill their stock or to
Yeah.
cull their stock, right? While they're printing all this excess amount of money, they're telling ranchers to call their stock, and people will see, and I'm pretty sure they're already starting to see the prices of food stuff, to include meat,
Oh
to
yeah.
include to include canned vegetables, going up in price by a lot. Not by a little, by a lot. I have a friend of mine who's one of my community members, and I call him a friend now because we go back and forth quite often.
Yeah.
He's a butcher. He's a butcher by trade. He told me in an email that he sent me last week or earlier this week, you could say, he told me that his prices have gone up by almost 100%.
Wow.
His price at the wholesale level. And he was giving me an example of prices, and I'll just use ground beef as an example. He said that he used to be able to sell ground beef for about $3.69 a pound or something like that, or I believe it was like 80-20.
Yeah.
And now that's what he is paying for the
Wow.
ground beef he brings in. So now he's selling ground beef for $8 to $9 a pound,
Wow.
in his area. Now I know that the prices can be localized. There's some areas in the country where maybe the supply is closer to where you live, and it's easier
Yeah.
for them where the prices aren't that bad. But there's some areas in the country where the prices are just exploding,
Yeah.
and going to be realized throughout the entire country as this goes on. Once this here health issue is over, the crisis has not ended.
Oh
I
no.
crisis with food shortages and supply issues is going to carry forth for a long time. after this health issue has subsided.
It's
So
maddening. Reading these stories about the farmers that are, killing livestock and pouring milk out onto the ground and just tilling their rotten vegetables right back into the earth. And they said, well, that's because, half of the farms in the country specifically supply schools, stadiums, cruise ships,
sure. Restaurants.
yeah, restaurants, and none of them have any business right now. Well, in the meantime, at the grocery store last week, they have a limit on, you can buy 2 packages of meat per customer. It's because the logistics and the supply chains aren't you know aren't integrated. They need to figure out, and I thought they were working on this. How do we get all the stuff from those farmers that used to supply the restaurants and get it to the grocery stores? Well, that's different trucking companies and different supply chains. We'll figure that out, because killing livestock or pouring out milk or burying vegetables, that's insanity to me right now.
Yes, I mean, think about it this way: for the rancher out there that's being forced to do this,
Yeah.
it would be the same thing as if you went to work for a week, let's say, and let's say you earn $500 that week. It's the same thing as you going to work, cashing your paycheck, taking that $500 and burning it.
Yeah.
All that labor, all of the capital that you invested in earning that money is gone, and you got absolutely nothing out of it. And
Yeah.
it's actually taking them work. They actually have to invest more capital
Oh
in
yeah.
order to get rid of everything that they've made for the last how many months it takes for one of those cows
Oh
to reach
yeah.
maturity, reach harvest age. So, but I think that the problem with that is, and I'm not an expert in this, but I think that one of the issues with that is that most of the meat production and also agricultural production and distribution is monopolized. I
Yeah.
think that in the US, just with meat alone, I think there's like four major meat processing and packaging companies that control about 85% of the market.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it only takes those four to go down for us to be in dire straits. Now, if things were more localized like they used to be, I'll say back in the good old days,
Yeah.
for a lack of a better term, right? We probably wouldn't be having so many issues like this. But, the good news is this, is that if you're prepared, you wouldn't have to worry about it. If you're prepared, all you have to do is worrying. Like, let me tell you what I'm worrying about right now. I personally think this is going to go on for a long time. Not the health issue, but I think that our relationship with the big red country over there. Can we say their name online? I don't even know if we can say China's name online.
Oh geez, I
But
don't know if do they own YouTube yet?
they probably do. But I think that our relationship with China is going to really suffer here in the long. And I could be wrong. Like I said, I'm not an expert in this, but I
Yeah.
think it will. There's a lot of geopolitical issues going on
Oh yeah.
between us and China and other countries in China and all that stuff. So I think that the made in China tag is going to either go away or decrease a lot, which in a way it's a good thing. I don't mind paying a little extra for something made locally and or made in the US,
Yeah.
right? And I'm sure a lot of people would say the same thing, because what we're doing is when we support our local farmers, ranchers, our local businesses, what we're doing is we're investing in a more secure future.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. You're paying that little extra 10% maybe to get that bicycle that was made in the US instead of getting one that was made in China. What you're doing is you're investing in the security of your future supplies.
Yeah.
You're investing in these companies being able to stay up and being able to help you and provide you with the things that you want and or need in the future should something like this happen again. So
Yeah.
it's a good thing. In a way, it's a good thing that maybe we may be drifting away from trading as much with China as we have in the past. I think it's a good thing, but we're going to feel the pain for a little bit. We just got to get through this. But
It,
like I said again, the good news is that you have time to prepare. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm prepped, John. All right, I am. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh no, I only have no. If I didn't have to go to town for the next 6 months, we're fine. Okay, I'm prepped. But am I still prepping? Absolutely,
yeah.
because I'm still filling in the gaps of what I'm using. So if I use 3 pounds of meat this week, guess what? I stop at the store and I pick up 3 pounds of meat so I can fill in that hole in my freezer.
Yeah.
Why? Because I can still get it. Why
Yeah.
not stay completely prepped, 100% prepped, if you still can? So, you know, for those of you that are prepped out there and you're able to keep up with replenishing your preps, by all means, to me, that is the smart thing to do.
Totally.
Because what if there's a crisis after this crisis? You know, what if
Yeah.
something happens after this? You don't know. That's why you prepare for it. You know,
We're
that's
in a crisis, but we can still get these things right now, and
yeah,
there it could manifest into something where we can't. So that's why I'm still going to the store. Uh,
absolutely. And you know what? What you get today is a lot cheaper than what it's going to cost you a year from now.
yeah.
You know, I'll give you a really quick example because I'm a numbers guy and I remember a lot of numbers. I'm pretty senile when it comes to like, you know, 2 weeks from now, I'll be like, yeah, I don't remember talking about that, John, but we did probably.
Yeah.
But I'm a numbers guy. Numbers kind of stick to me. So about a year ago, I was prepping some canned corn, right? And and at that time the corn was like 48 cents a can. So I prepped up on that. I was like, hey, this is a great price. I got like a year's supply, you
Yeah.
know. And for me, a year's supply of canned corn is like 2 cases, right? Because
Right.
we do it every day. So every time that I would use 5 or 6 cans, I would go to the store and get 5 or 6 cans and replenish my stock. And I noticed that every time I went, the price was higher. So the second time that I went after it was 48 cents, it was like 54 cents,
Mm-hmm.
which is only 6 cents. But 6 cents is like 12%. When
Right.
you look at a percentage basis, it's 12% roughly, right? 12.5%. You know, 6 cents divided by 48, it's about 12.5%. The next time I went, it was 64 cents.
Ah.
Then the next time I went, it was 70 cents. And then I just went, I did a payday prep here, I don't know, about a week or two ago, where I had 6 cans of corn and 6 cans of green beans.
Yeah.
That same can is now 83 cents.
Wow.
So in 1 year, it went from 48 cents to 83 cents, almost a 100% jump in price.
Mm.
If anything, if you want to prep just to save money, then prep just to save money because I'm still eating that corn that I bought a year ago at 48 cents a can.
Oh yeah.
You know, yes, I paid 83 cents a can for the ones that I recently bought, but guess what? A year from now, I'll be sitting here talking to you saying, yeah, remember that can of corn I told you I bought for 83 cents? Now it's $1.20. Now it's
Mm-hmm.
a dollar.
That's
That's
right.
gonna happen. That's gonna continue to happen. And not only because of our harvests, not only because of the difficulties that we have with our farms and our weather and all that kind of stuff, but also because of the inflation of the money supply.
Yeah.
More money that's out there. I was explaining this yesterday to someone, to a friend of mine. I said, the more money that is out there chasing the same amount of goods, the higher the price of those goods. It's
Yeah.
just economics, right? So if anything, go ahead and prep so that you can save money. If you're having a problem with your mom asking you, hey, why are you prepping? We have to talk about it, saying, hey, mom, the way I see it is that these things are always going up in price. So I'm not prepping for the end of the world. I'm just prepping so that I can save money. Instead of buying this a year from now at double the
Yeah.
price, I can have it for half the price now. So
Yeah.
there's a lot that you can convince people that prepping is the right thing to do for many reasons. Me, the only reason that I use for prepping, and I tell this to people a lot, is that I love my family. I do not want to ever have to tell my children, my son, my daughter, or my wife, hey, I can't get you any food because instead of spending a few dollars stocking up some food stuff, I decided to go to the bar.
Right.
So I decided to pick up a hobby, flying planes or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
now money to make sure that something happens, you're taken care of. And you know, when I first started prepping, that's what I told my wife. My wife was not on board when I first started prepping. You know, she was like, "Why in the world are you getting all this rice?" And I'm like, in case something happens, you know, this rice, the way I'm packing it, it'll last 20, 30 years. She's like, why in the world are you packing rice away for 30 years? Blah, 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 blah. So eventually I told her this. I said, listen, what would you rather me do? Would you rather me have a really expensive hobby like flying planes? Because I know some people that's their hobby. They go flying planes and
Yeah.
it's very expensive, right? Nothing wrong with it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with having a hobby. Uh, but I told her, would you rather me spend our excess money at the bar or go do things that aren't really productive, that once you spend the money, it's gone.
Yeah.
Yes, you may have the experience in your memory, but the material things that you could have gotten with that money, it's gone because you spent the money on that. I
Hmm.
said, or would there me have a hobby where I can take that money and make sure that if anything happens, that you and our kids will be fed for a certain period of time. Once I explained it to her that way, she was like, you know what? She still wasn't really on board with prepping, right, per se. But she said, you know what? I would rather you do this
Yeah.
money at the bar. You're right. I would rather you do this than go throw your money away on something that's not going to have any value a year from now. You know,
Yeah.
I have bought a flat screen TV for like over 10 years.
Right.
The last flat screen TV we had was one of those little 32-inch
Oh
TVs.
yeah.
I refused, and we moved to our house here, and I refused to get a bigger one. I said, there's no way I'm paying money for a bigger TV. This is what we have. This is what we're using. I'm not spending $1,000 or whatever it is on a big flat screen TV. I'd rather spend that on preps.
Yeah.
And it happens that my son, who's still young, he went and bought a huge flat screen TV because it was the newest one in the, in the, it was the newest one, right?
Right.
And he gave the old one. So I say, see, now we got a bigger flat screen TV, and I have to pay for it. But is you have to make sacrifices.
Yeah.
You have to make some sacrifices. Some people are in a position where money is not an object, money is not a problem, and to them it's not making a sacrifice, and they go out and they spend $20,000 on everything in one shot. Good
Right.
for them. Good
Yeah.
for them. Most people can't do that, but good for them. If I could do that, I would. If I had $20,000, $30,000 right now that I had nothing else to do with it and everything else in my finances was great, I
Yeah.
would do that.
Sure.
So, well, it just depends where you are in life and what your situation is.
Yeah. My background professionally is in marketing, and I tend to think of a lot of things in those terms, especially when I'm talking to somebody who maybe like that conversation with my mom, or I don't try to really let every random person or coworker totally into this world because you never know, but you have to almost tailor the way that you talk about it to the person. For my mom, I said, well, you had a power outage last year that lasted a week. And in that week, what are the problems that you faced? And she listed off the problems. Well, all the food was ruined. This happened. I was miserable. I said, okay, well, right now, I wouldn't suffer any of those problems because of this, this, and this. And that kind of thing. Let's say something happens and the municipal power goes out for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. What would you do? You wouldn't be able to stay at your house because you just couldn't. And by the end of it, she was, well, I know where I'm going next time that happens. That's where other people I found need a little bit of a little different take on it. It's you touched on this earlier. It seems very daunting. You tell somebody about what you've done and they say, wow, that's too much. You say, yeah, but it's been 10, 15 years of doing it. That's why I have all this. But um, it's a lot to chew on if you are starting from zero.
Right.
So you have to think about how to break them into it. And yeah, start off small, buy a couple extra things every time you shop. But something that really resonated with somebody recently that I was talking to is another thing that you touched on, and that's you know uh, your neighbor Bob who works in accounting and has you know the yearly barbecue in his backyard and everybody loves his stories or whatever. Old Bob, nicest guy ever. He is only one starving kid away from killing you for what you have, and
Yeah.
that puts a little bit of a grim spin on it. Um, but Bob will do anything to keep his kids from starving, no matter how nice he is right now. So if you're prepared, maybe you can help Bob get prepared, and everybody's
Right.
happy. And now he doesn't have starving kids, and that resonated with him. Of course, it also made him want to go out and buy another gun.
That's
Whatever, that's
okay.
fine too. Yeah, you got do what you got to do. But you know what? I have a question for you that's not 100% a prepping question, and it's
Okay.
because you have a lot of videos that are cooking videos,
Oh
uh,
yeah, I love to cook.
and I love cooking videos too. And I make videos cooking that don't have anything to do with prepping, and people in the comments say, "What is this? This isn't a cooking channel." And I say, "I don't care. I like it. I like cooking videos." So I've watched a handful of yours. In fact, you've got cooking videos. I mean, you've got lots of breads and pizzas and casseroles, all sorts of stuff. But you've got some stuff I've never even heard of. Like I had to write it down. Sofrito, and
So great. Yeah.
Sancocho.
Oh,
These are
I'm actually making sancocho today.
really, those are two dishes I've never heard of. Well, I have now. I watched the videos. But so my question is a two-part question. One, what's your favorite thing to cook that would use only your, prepper ingredients, your long-term storage kind of stuff? What would be your favorite meal to make as far as that goes?
I love make well. Look at me, man. I like every kind of food.
It's a
All
hard
right,
question.
but so if I'm only using my preps, my man, you know what? I'm very easy to satisfy when it comes to food. I can eat anything, and not complain about it,
Hmm.
especially if I'm hungry, right? But I love to bake. I love to bake, and you can use breads for anything. You can use them as fillers. It fills you up. You can use them, with soups. You can use them, sop up whatever
Yeah.
gravy there's left in your room. But you can pretty much eat some bread every meal of the day. And the diabetes people are going to say, well, that's not good for you. Bread is nothing but sugar. But you have to take into consideration this during normal times. Like I cooked a couple of loaves of bread, I think about 3 weeks ago, and we just ran out.
Yeah.
Just two loaves, right? So during normal times, we go through. Let's say we go through one loaf of bread a week for a family of four, right? During times of stress or times of crises, not like real times of stress, not now where most people are at home still in their couches watching their computers, right?
Right.
But if you catch yourself having to go out and cut, a cord of wood, or a couple of cord of wood in a week or something like that, you're really doing manual labor. All of that bread stuff and pasta stuff, that's going to go out the window because you're going to be looking for calories so that you can work.
Yeah.
But I really like to bake, and bread is so easy to make, and it can be used in so many different things that my favorite thing to do is to bake. I also like to cook, and I've done a lot of videos. A lot of the cooking videos that I've done are actually cooking with things that I got out of my pantry.
Okay.
Like that sancocho is not. It's just something that I wanted to share with the community because
Yeah.
it's like one of my very favorite meals that I got from my mom, and I wanted to show people how to make that. And it turns out that a lot of my community members actually went out and made it, and they're like, "Oh man, this is delicious."
Oh wow.
So, that's good. I like to spread that kind of joy around.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
in all reality, your pantry should be able to serve you 2 months into a crisis the same that it serves you when there is no crisis.
Right.
So the a combination of your freezer and your pantry. So like I got my freezer stocked with beef, pork, chicken, etc., and I got my pantry stuff with those other things that don't need refrigeration. It should be able to serve you in the same manner. So for example, I'm making a sancocho today. Everything that I'm making with that sancocho came out of my freezer and my pantry, with the exception of the fresh vegetables that I'm going to use.
Right.
So in a SHTF, I hate using that word, but
I
in an
know.
SHTF, if you want to say, I can still make that sancocho. I would just have to use dehydrated or freeze dried vegetables
Yeah.
instead of the fresh vegetables, right? So I mean, I don't think I answered your question very well, but if I had to say that one thing that I would really enjoy doing if I had to pick one thing to cook out of my pantry is to make bread because I love baking. I really like
Okay.
doing it. I'm
Yeah.
actually considering taking a culinary class in the university that they have here
Okay.
that specializes in baking.
Oh,
Uh,
cool.
I'm thinking about that. I'm about getting ready to give my boss the pink slip here in a few months, and I was like, maybe I ought to go to college for a year and learn how to bake professionally. How they teach you in school because
Yeah.
I'm retired from the army and I can still use some of my benefits that I got from the army for school
Oh,
to go.
wow.
So I was
That's
like, yeah, but I'll think about it. I'm leaving my work because I want to be free from the rat race and punching the clock.
yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
not sure how well it will work for me if I go from leaving the punching a clock to go to work to punching a clock to go to school. So maybe I'll take a little bit of time after I'm done with work to do whatever I want to do. and then
Maybe,
maybe
maybe.
go
At
do that.
least school doesn't take as long every week as work.
Right, and exactly, exactly. But it's I told my wife, I was like, I really like my job. I'm very lucky. I have a really good job. My boss is an awesome boss, but I just hate the idea that I have to be there at a certain time. I
Yeah,
have to take my lunch at a certain time. I have to ask permission whenever I want time off. I'm like, I'm getting to the point in my life where I'm tired of asking permission.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's like I want to do what I want to do now. I've already worked my whole life. I'm in a position where if I stop working, yeah, of course, I won't have as much disposable income as I do now,
yeah.
but my time will be my income.
Oh,
My
yeah.
time will be prize, so I can do what I want. But we'll see what happens to that here in the next few months. Hopefully, I'll be
Uh,
able to do it,
I'm
and
gonna
and
face the
able to make
similar.
yeah.
Uh,
Then I'll be able to make bread all the time.
that'll be great. Well, you could start the Alaska Prepper Bakery at that point. But I
I
don't
always
know when it'll be.
son, I tell my son after the apocalypse, I'm gonna be the baker.
That's right. Everyone's gonna need bread. Show me one person that doesn't need food. Yeah, it's interesting. I think I don't know when it'll be, but I'll face a similar decision at some point because my aspirations are to move further north in Michigan. Have the land, have the homestead, all that good stuff. Get out of the rat race.
You live in Michigan?
Yep.
Oh, okay, well, Great Lakes. I thought maybe that you lived in Illinois or something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. They're all the Great Lakes states that surround it, but I'll
Yeah,
claim Michigan is, the main Great Lakes state because all the lakes are all
well,
around us.
yeah. The reason I asked is because I lived in Michigan for almost 12 years with my
Mm,
wife
okay.
before we decided to join the army, and then we ended up here in Alaska.
Ah,
So, but I lived up towards about the middle, probably between. If you look at the state, probably
yeah.
about halfway up. You know where Grand Rapids is?
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
lived about 20 miles north of Grand Rapids.
Well, that's the great thing about Michigan is you can just use your hand for a map to show where you lived.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Well, my part two of the cooking question you may have actually kind of answered, which was um, if ingredients were no object, nor was any other factor, what would be your number one favorite dish to either make or eat or order?
Man,
Uh,
I've got a funny story for you.
please.
So a few weeks back, I think it was a couple of weeks back or so, I was at Costco. I've never had ribeye.
Mm,
I've never had it. It's expensive. So
yeah.
I find myself looking at the ribeye section, looking at the ribeye. I'm like, man, those look really, really good. But I've never had it, never cooked it. But they were really expensive. I'm like, man, they must be really good if they're so expensive. So I was like, you know what? Heck with it. I'm going to get one. So I
Mhm.
got a pack of 4 ribeye and I brought it home. And I've always said that if you have a really good piece of steak, that you only need salt and pepper.
Yeah.
That the steak should, pretty much speak for. Sorry about this. That the
No, no,
steak should pretty much speak for itself.
for sure.
So I seasoned it with salt and pepper. I let it come to room temperature, and then I cooked it on the grill. Joe, it was the best piece of steak I've ever had in my life. So if money was not an object and ingredients were not an object, I would stick to simplicity.
Yeah.
A good piece of steak with salt and pepper and a baked potato.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not really a fancy kind of guy when it comes to eating. I like to just eat, meat and potatoes, soul
Yeah.
food.
Sure, sure.
Those, like, for example, that sancocho that I make, one of the meats that goes in it is beef tail.
Mm.
And I remember a time when beef tail used to be really inexpensive
Ah,
because it was considered an inferior part of the cow. It's the tail. Who wants to eat the tail?
right.
But now it's extremely expensive because people, you know, realize, man, this is really, really high quality meat. So, but that to me is like soul food. Is food where you use ingredients that weren't meant to be the classiest or the
Right.
best ingredients, but you turn it into something that's really good.
Right,
So,
right.
but yeah, you're not gonna catch this guy eating at a fancy restaurant anytime soon.
I don't love the atmosphere of a fancy restaurant, but I will admit that I do like some fancy food from time to time, but I like to try to reproduce it at home.
Well, you know what? I took my wife out to a fancy restaurant. The last time I took her out to a fancy restaurant was, I forgot what year anniversary it was. Well, probably 10 years ago or so. We've been
Mm,
married for 26 years.
wow.
10 years ago or so, I took her out to a somewhat fancy restaurant, and I forgot the name of that steak that they make in Japan.
The
You know
Wagyu beef?
what is it called?
Is it the Wagyu?
Yes.
Yeah, that's expensive.
I had a piece of that, and it's as good as people say it is.
Really?
But yeah, usually I'll take my wife to Taco Bell for our anniversary.
Yeah. Taco
It's
Bell's
an ongoing
too.
it's an ongoing thing that we've done for years. You know,
Yeah.
we've probably done it for about 22, 23 years of our anniversary
Nice.
of our anniversaries. We go to Taco Bell. So you know, it's just something between her and I that we've always done.
Yeah.
But but yeah, if you have ever have a chance to try that Wagyu beef, oh my goodness, it
I'll have
is
to.
incredible. Spend the
Yeah.
money time just so you can have that experience.
Maybe I'll have to do that one time. I bet there's a place within a 10-minute drive that would sell it around here if I had to
Really?
find it.
Oh man, I don't think there's anywhere around here that sells
Yeah.
that.
Well, I'm not too far off the beaten path right now. That's kind of where I hope to go. Is into the great northern part of Michigan where there's not much there but
Right.
country
Right. There is it's less populated, I guess you could say, right?
for sure. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I really enjoy. I spent
That's
a lot of
one of the
time
things
up
that
there.
I enjoy. Yeah, it's one of the things that I really enjoy about living in Alaska. Is that although I don't know if you hear my neighbor's diesel truck turn on, but I
Yeah,
do have neighbors to my left and to my right, but they're not right. They're not 3 feet away. You know,
yeah.
they're I guess my closest neighbor is about 100 and something meters to my right,
Okay.
and one about 300 or so meters to my left. But one thing that I do recommend whenever you decide to pick up and move is get to know your neighbors before you buy. So before I bought this piece of land, I went and I actually, got to know the people that lived here, and I
Yeah.
was like, "You guys are good people." And it just happens that they're also in the preparedness mindset,
Hmm.
which is a great thing. A lot of people here are because of where we live.
Yeah.
Especially if you live outside of the city, uh, you're usually uh, living a more self-reliant lifestyle, like having chickens and things like
Sure.
that, growing your own gardens, and so that's what I like about living away from the city, is that the people out here, man, I want to say they're pretty trustworthy.
Yeah.
You know, I trust my neighbor. I've left tools out and things like that on my property for weeks, gone to work, left the house alone. Never ever have I had anything come up missing.
Right.
You know, one time there was someone that doesn't live in this area walking around my property, and my neighbor came right out and said, "Hey, who are you? What are you doing here?" And he called me at work and said, "Hey, we got somebody here." I'm like, "I haven't invited anyone over, and I
Wow.
don't have any work." And so that's how we are out here.
Yeah.
We look out for each other, and you know, it's a great community to be in. It's one where you know that you can, number one, trust your neighbors, and
Yeah.
number trust that your neighbors will come and help you in your time of need, as long as you do the same towards them. So
For sure.
when I was in this house, anytime that I needed an extra hand, it was nothing for me to call my neighbor and say, "Hey, man, can you come over here for a few minutes?" And granted, he was building his house too at the same
Mm.
time. He would stop what he's doing, help me put up this beam or whatever it was,
Yeah.
go back to work. But it works both ways.
For sure.
I've done them. So we know we can trust each other. We know that we'll help each other if we need help. I
Yeah.
think that's one of the things that you want to look for when you're looking for a community that you want to live in, just in case.
Definitely.
I mean, it's nice to be during regular times. It's nice to have a community like that. But during hard times or
Oh
during
yeah.
times, it's important to live in a community like that.
For sure.
I so so yeah.
Awesome. Well, I know I've kept you for a little over an hour now, so I guess if you like we can wrap it up here. I think it was a really
Yeah,
good
yeah, man.
conversation.
It's been an hour already, huh? Hey, I always say, John, that when you're in good company, time goes by quick.
I know. I
So,
didn't realize there was a little counter at the top of the screen, and we're at between the first call when the call got interrupted, and now it's been over an hour. Yeah, it's definitely
hey,
flown by.
man, like I said in the beginning, I knew this was going to be fun. I always have fun talking with other, preppers, I guess you can call it,
Yeah,
or like-minded people. So
absolutely.
Hey, so I just want to say, I honestly didn't know of your channel. I obviously subscribed to it because once you reached out to me, I went and took a look at your videos and I
Oh,
subscribed to your channel. So
thanks.
if you're watching this video and you're from the Alaska Prepper community, go ahead and hit subscribe and follow John and support him because what you're doing, John, is what I've always said is very important. You're reaching people, you've got a platform, and you decided to use that platform to alert people that to the reality that we need to be prepared. And to me, that's the most important thing is spreading the word. It doesn't matter how big or how small your channel is. If you're in the preparedness mindset and you want to reach people and you've done everything that you can within your local community, open up a YouTube channel. There's 7.7 billion people out there. Open up a YouTube channel and you can turn a hobby into something that maybe provides you a little bit of an income to reward you for your time. But more importantly, you'll be able to spread the word to other people that may not have found other prepper channels, you know, and they can become awake to the fact that they need to prepare. Because
Absolutely.
as I said it before, and I'll say it again, the more people that are prepared, the better. So let me go ahead and end it by saying, hey, thank you very much for having me, man. In the future, we can do this again. I had a lot of fun.
I really appreciate you doing this, and I think it was a great conversation. I love hearing the perspective of different people, and also people that have been at it for a bit longer than I have, and they're gonna know things and observe things that maybe I haven't yet. So it's been really great.
Yeah, I wanted to go ahead and throw one last thing in here. I'm looking at some of my tools to the side here.
Yeah.
One last thing in here. I'm not sure if you've thought about this or not, but I would like to challenge people to take a look at their stock and ask themselves one question. What am I going to need 6 months to a year from now? All right, what am I going to need? Not necessarily in food stuff, but other things. Do you have an extra serpentine belt for your vehicle? Do you have an extra? Oh, excuse me for a second. All right. Do you have an extra, set of tires? Do you have an extra battery? Uh, think of things that you may need in a year from now that may not be available because of whatever trade issues we may have.
Yeah.
That's on right now. Right now, I'm kind of on the kick of trying to think of things that I may need in the future that I necessarily don't need right now, but
Right.
that I think that maybe in the future, maybe motor oil, maybe twice as expensive in the future as it is today.
Oh
So
yeah.
try to those things, and if you can, try to get some of those things stocked up. That way, if they become unavailable for a certain amount of time, for whatever issues we may be having geopolitically, you will have them, and you won't have to be trying to stress trying to find them. So that's where I'm going to leave it at, John.
Great.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. And once I hit stop, we can talk another second.
All right. Hey, thanks again for having me, man. I truly do appreciate it. I had a great time.
Absolutely. I hope we do it again. Hey, thanks again to Alaska Prepper for taking the time to talk with me. I had a lot of fun, and I definitely hope we can do that again sometime. I honestly need to get the hang of this Skype video a little more. I don't know why it decided to mess with the colors on the recording of me for most of that video, but thankfully, Alaska Prepper came out looking pretty good. So yeah, if you haven't seen Alaska Prepper's stuff, I really recommend going to his channel and checking it out. It's always lots of good information, lots of good demonstrations of things, and just a really good perspective on really all things prepping. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And until next time, this is Great Lakes Prepping.